They fired him with an email sent at 2:13 a.m. The hour companies love when they're trying to make cruelty feel administrative. No phone call, no meeting, no chance to speak. Just a subject line that pretended this was neutral. Employment status update. Darnell Reeves read it twice in the glow of his phone while the night shift hum of the downtown office tower rolled on around him. Air conditioning, distant elevator cables, the soft beep of a security panel. 39 years old, black, broad-shouldered, calm. He wore the same Navy uniform he'd worn for 6 years at Hawthorne Plaza, a 38-story glass building that housed tech firms, law offices, and one very powerful tenant on the top floors, Hawthorne Dynamics. The email said his contract was terminated effective immediately due to restructuring and performance alignment. It instructed him to turn in his badge at the lobby desk by 8 a.m. It thanked him for his service, as if he'd been a disposable utility. Darnell stared at the words and felt a familiar heat rise in his chest. Anger, yes, but also something colder. Recognition. He'd seen restructuring used as a curtain before. He knew what it usually meant when it hit someone like him without warning. Someone higher up wanted a different face in the lobby. Someone decided the building's image mattered more than the person who kept it safe. He turned off his phone screen and looked at the lobby through the security office glass. Marble floors, a wall of security monitors, a digital sign scrolling tenant names. Everything looked polished, quiet, controlled. And then, on monitor 7, something flickered. A shadow where there shouldn't be one. Darnell leaned forward. For 2 seconds, the camera feed showed a service stairwell door on level B2, supposed to be locked, opening and closing again. Quick. Too quick for a maintenance worker, too deliberate for a gust of air. The door should not have moved. Darnell's stomach tightened. He checked the access log. No authorized badge swipe at that door. His fingers moved fast across the keyboard, pulling up the last 10 minutes of motion events. The system showed a brief blind spot, like someone had interfered with the sensor or the camera angle. That wasn't random. That was someone who knew the building. Darnell glanced back at the termination email. Overnight firing, effective immediately. Badge surrendered by morning. A door opening in a restricted area with no badge swipe. He felt the pieces click together with a cold clarity. This wasn't restructuring. This was clearance. Someone wanted him out of the way. Darnell stood, grabbed his flashlight, and keyed his radio. "Control to Roving," he said calmly. "I'm checking B2 stairwell. Keep eyes on cameras." The voice on the other end, his coworker Luis, answered sleepily. "Copy. You good?" Darnell's voice stayed steady. "Just checking something." He didn't mention the email, not yet. He didn't mention the gut feeling either, because gut feelings sound like paranoia until they become evidence. Darnell had learned that the hard way. He left the security office and walked across the lobby in measured steps. If someone was watching, inside or outside, he wasn't going to give them panic. Panic is information. At the service elevator, he scanned his badge. It still worked. That meant the termination hadn't been processed in the system yet. Just delivered an email. A gap. A window. He rode down to B2. The underground level of Hawthorne Plaza smelled like concrete and cold air. Loading dock, utility rooms, a maze of corridors most tenants never saw. Darnell moved quietly, flashlight low, listening. At the stairwell door on the camera, he saw it. The latch plate showed fresh scrape marks, like someone had slipped a tool in. A little smear of dark grease on the metal. Darnell crouched and touched it lightly with a gloved finger. Fresh. His heartbeat stayed steady, but his mind accelerated. If someone had forced this door, they were either trying to enter the building without going through the lobby or trying to access the utility corridors that connected to the executive floors. Either way, it was bad. He pressed his ear near the door. Nothing. Then faint. A soft clicking sound. Not footsteps, not voices, electronics. Darnell's jaw tightened. He pulled his radio. "Control," he said quietly. "I'm at B2 stairwell. Evidence of forced entry. I'm going to check the electrical room near the risers." Luis's voice sharpened instantly. "You want me to call it up?" "Not yet," Darnell said. "I need eyes first." He moved down the corridor toward the electrical and network rooms. spaces that held the building's nervous system. Hawthorne Plaza's security was integrated. Cameras, badge access, fire panels, HVAC, elevator controls. A person with access down here could blind cameras, open doors, trigger alarms, or prevent alarms from triggering. Darnell reached the network closet and saw the door slightly ajar. It was supposed to be locked. His hand tightened around the flashlight. He pushed it open slowly. Inside, the faint glow of a laptop screen lit the darkness. Someone was in there. Darnell didn't rush in like a hero in a movie. He took one step back, positioned himself to the side of the doorframe, and angled his flashlight beam low to avoid silhouetting himself. His voice was controlled but firm. "Security," he said. "Step away from the equipment. Hands where I can see them." The figure inside froze. A man in dark clothing turned slowly, startled. Not a maintenance worker. Too clean, too deliberate. A small toolkit on the floor. A laptop connected to a panel with cables. The man's eyes flicked toward the door, calculating exits. Darnell raised his radio. "Control, I have an intruder in the network closet B2. Call police now." Luis's voice came fast. "Copy. Calling." The intruder's face tightened. "You shouldn't be here," the man said. Darnell's eyes narrowed. "Funny, that's my line." The man took a step forward as if trying to push past. Darnell didn't swing. He didn't escalate first. He planted his feet. "You move," Darnell said, voice low, "and you're going down." The man hesitated, just long enough. Then he lunged. Darnell moved fast. Years of security work, de-escalation training, and experience in bad moments turned his body into a decision. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted, redirected momentum, and pinned him against the wall with controlled force. The flashlight clattered, but Darnell didn't lose balance. The intruder struggled, cursing, trying to break free. Darnell held him. "Stop fighting," he said. "You're done." The intruder spat. "You were supposed to be gone." Darnell's blood went cold. "Say that again," Darnell said, voice dangerously calm. The man's eyes widened slightly, realizing he'd spoken too much. He tried to twist away again. Darnell tightened the hold and repeated, quieter, "Who told you I'd be gone?" The intruder gritted his teeth. "Doesn't matter." It mattered, because it confirmed everything Darnell feared. His firing wasn't about performance. It was operational. Someone wanted this breach to happen without him in the building. Sirens echoed faintly in the garage ramp above. The police arrived within minutes. 2 officers entered the corridor, weapons drawn, then lowered them when they saw Darnell holding the intruder pinned. "Step back," one officer ordered. Darnell complied slowly, hands visible. He was in the network closet, laptop connected to building systems. The officers cuffed the intruder. One of them looked at the laptop and cables, then swore quietly. "This is serious." Darnell nodded. "Yeah." The police asked for a statement. Darnell gave it cleanly. Timeline, camera, anomaly, forced door, network closet, confrontation. He didn't add emotion. He added facts. By 4:10 a.m., the building's security vendor arrived and confirmed what Darnell suspected. The intruder had been attempting to insert a device into the building's network, something designed to capture credentials and potentially control access systems. A sophisticated attempt, not a random thief, a targeted breach. And Hawthorne Dynamics, top floor tenant, held sensitive data, contracts, prototypes, executive comms. A breach could have been catastrophic. Darnell sat in the security office afterward, hands steady now, but mind blazing. He looked again at the email. Employment status update. Terminated effective immediately. He realized something else too. If the intruder had succeeded, the incident would have been blamed on security failure. On him. On the night crew. The company would have had a scapegoat ready. His phone buzzed. "A call from an unknown number." He answered. "This is Claire Park," a woman said, voice crisp. "Chief of Staff to CEO Ashton Hale. Are you the officer who apprehended the intruder?" Darnell's eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes." "Stay where you are," Claire said. "The CEO is coming down." Darnell almost laughed. CEOs didn't come down to B2 at dawn unless the world was on fire. He said calmly, "Understood." 20 minutes later, the private elevator opened, and out stepped Ashton Hale, CEO of Hawthorne Dynamics. White man, early 40s, famous in business magazines, usually surrounded by assistants. Not now. He walked fast, jacket thrown on, face tense with real fear masked his focus. Claire walked beside him with a tablet. Ashton's eyes locked on Darnell immediately. "You're Reeves." "Yes, sir." Ashton looked around the security office, then at the screens, then back at Darnell. "They told me you stopped an intrusion attempt." Darnell nodded. "Yes." Ashton's voice tightened. "What exactly were they doing?" Darnell explained quickly. Forced entry, network closet, device insertion, potential access compromise. Claire's fingers moved over her tablet, recording. Ashton exhaled hard. "If they got into our floor..." Darnell didn't soften the truth. "It could have been bad." Ashton stared at him for a long beat, then asked the question that changed everything. "Why weren't you on our security briefing list?" he demanded, turning toward Claire. Claire blinked. "He's building security, not corporate." Ashton snapped, "I don't care what label he is. He's the one who saved the building." "Who is he?" Claire hesitated, then said, "Darnell Reeves, night security supervisor assigned through building management." Ashton's eyes narrowed. "Supervisor?" Darnell's jaw tightened. "Not anymore." Ashton looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" Darnell pulled out his phone and showed the email. "They fired me overnight." Claire's eyes widened. "Who fired you?" Darnell's voice was calm, but every word carried weight. "Building management. Restructuring. Effective immediately." Ashton Hale's face changed in a way that was almost dangerous. He looked like a man realizing the edges of a trap. He turned toward Claire. "Get me the building manager. Now." Claire nodded, already dialing. While she called, Ashton stared at Darnell. "You were fired hours before an intrusion attempt," he said slowly, "and you happen to still be here." Darnell held his gaze. "Yeah." Ashton's jaw tightened. "That's not coincidence." Darnell didn't speculate. He said, "The intruder told me you were supposed to be gone." Claire stopped mid-dial and looked up, eyes wide. "He said that?" Darnell nodded. "Yes." Ashton's voice went colder. "Then we have an internal problem." At 5:22 a.m., building management finally answered. The property director, white man named Ken Morrison, stammered excuses on speaker. "Mr. Hale, this is unusual. We're handling..." Ashton cut him off. "You fired the man who stopped a cyber-physical breach hours before it happened." Ken's voice tightened. "We had staffing changes." Ashton's tone was lethal. "Who authorized it?" Ken hesitated. "It was HR." Ashton said, "I'm not asking which department. I'm asking whose name is on the decision." Silence. Ken tried. "It was part of a contract review." Ashton snapped, "Stop. If Reeves had not been here, we might be dealing with a catastrophic breach, and you removed him overnight." Ken stammered, "We didn't know." Ashton said, "That's the problem. You didn't know because you didn't respect the people who actually protect the building." Claire watched Ashton carefully, then said quietly, "Sir, IT confirms the device was designed to intercept credentials. The intruder had building plans on the laptop." Ashton's eyes hardened. "Ken, you're going to provide every detail of that termination. Emails, approvals, access logs, immediately. If this was coordinated, we will involve federal authorities." Ken's voice went thin. "Understood." Ashton ended the call and turned to Darnell. His voice softened slightly. Still CEO, but human. "You have family?" Darnell nodded. "Yes." Ashton looked him in the eye. "You're safe?" Darnell hesitated. "I don't know." Ashton's jaw tightened. "We'll make sure you are." Then he did something no one expected from a billionaire CEO at dawn in a basement security office. He extended his hand. "Thank you," Ashton said. Darnell shook his hand once. Firm. Controlled. "Just doing my job." Ashton shook his head. "You did more than your job, and you were punished for it." Claire spoke softly. "Sir, the board is going to ask who prevented this." Ashton's eyes flicked toward the cameras. "Good, because I want them to hear his name." That morning, an emergency briefing convened in Hawthorne Dynamics Executive Conference Room. IT, legal, security, and leadership crowded around screens showing intrusion timelines and network diagrams. The police report was already circulating. The city's cyber unit was involved. The FBI liaison call was scheduled. And when Ashton Hale stood at the head of the table and the board members asked, "How did we stop it?" He didn't let anyone hide behind departments. He said, "A building security guard named Darnell Reeves caught it and physically stopped the intruder." The room paused. One board member asked, "Reeves? Who is that?" Ashton's eyes sharpened. "The man building management fired overnight." Silence turned heavy. Ashton continued, "And if he had been gone, we would be talking about breach response, not prevention." A board member muttered, "That's unacceptable." Ashton nodded. "Yes, it is." By noon, building management tried to reverse the termination quietly, an email offering reinstatement, effective immediately. It was the same administrative language, now used as a bandage. Ashton rejected it. He called the building owners directly and demanded control over security staffing for Hawthorne's floors, plus an investigation into who ordered Darnell's termination. Darnell was offered a new position, not through building management, but directly with Hawthorne Dynamics, security operations lead, higher pay, real benefits, and authority to build protocols. Darnell didn't accept immediately, not because he didn't want the opportunity, but because he understood the cost of being used as a symbol. He wanted terms. He wanted protection for his coworkers. He wanted the truth documented. So he said, "I'll consider, but I want guarantees. And I want Luis and the night crew protected." They tried to scapegoat us. Ashton nodded without hesitation. "Done." 2 weeks later, the investigation uncovered what Darnell suspected. The intruder had inside information about staffing schedules and access points. A mid-level facilities contractor had been bribed for badge swipe timing and camera placement details. The contractor had also forwarded internal emails, one of which included the notice of Darnell's termination schedule. It wasn't that building management itself orchestrated the breach. It was that their sloppy, biased, cost-cutting decision created the perfect opening, and their internal communications leaked into the wrong hands. The contractor was arrested. The breach was prevented. The building security contracts were rewritten. Ken Morrison resigned to pursue other opportunities. And Darnell? Darnell walked into Hawthorne Plaza one evening, a month later wearing a different badge. Not because his worth had changed, but because the institution had finally been forced to recognize it. He passed the lobby where he'd been made to feel disposable and looked at the night crew with quiet solidarity. Luis grinned. "Look at you, boss." Darnell shook his head. "Not boss. Not like that." Luis laughed. "Man, you saved the building." Darnell's voice was quiet. "I save people. That's the point." And that was the ending. They fired the black security guard overnight because they thought he was replaceable, because they valued optics and budgets more than the man who actually protected the building, until the CEO asked who saved it, and the truth forced its way into the light. The guard they tried to erase was the reason their world didn't collapse.